things, and like our Facebook page at Wrestling with Things to keep up with your boys and keep up with all our interviews, conversations on the sports and entertainment world. And guys, we are entering a new decade. Sammy, it feels like 2019 breezed the hell on by, but let's get into some decade awards, shall we? Let's talk Pro Wrestler of the Decade. So many good names, but let's list our 5 best of this decade. I'm gonna let you go first, Sammy.
Well, I'm gonna definitely start with the big three in there. The Shield members, all 3 members. That's definitely the 1, 2, the 3. But then I gotta go with my man Cena, because this wrestling era wouldn't even be nothing if Cena wasn't holding the fort for that first half of the decade, because that was a weak era, and Cena was like the only main star who was putting everything on his back. He had a little bit of help from CM Punk. I won't disrespect CM Punk and say CM Punk wasn't on that type of stratosphere, but CM Punk was more honorable mention for me. And then the last piece, I got to throw a female in there, so I got to throw Charlotte. And to all the women out there, the only reason why there's only one female is because this was a weak era for females. No offense.
No, I could see that for most of the decade. I mean, up until I want to say 2013, kind of 2014-ish is when women started really, women started be given the opportunities, and then more of the talented women started to come up and maximize their minutes. But number 5, I'm going to start from the bottom up, and everybody on this list is on this list for a reason. I'm going to say Roman Reigns for number 5. That might sound low to some people, but if we're talking about the entire decade, it's obvious that from 2014 and on is, 2015 is when he really started to hit his stride, as we could see this guy becoming a face and, our real top guy. And he's done so much. He's main evented multiple WrestleManias. He's had his booing phase, his mixed reaction phase, but the last obviously year or so or two, he's rebuilt himself into more of a quintessential face of the company. He mostly gets 100% shares because I think obviously the leukemia thing played a factor, and how can you not feel bad, and how can you not respect him, having to overcome that? But I think at the same time, people have grown to respect him. He's gotten a lot better in the ring, and he's gotten a lot more consistent. And you just know when you put Roman Reigns in the match, he's going to bring the best out of whoever he's in the ring with. Number 4, I said CM Punk as well. I mean, he didn't stick around a lot this whole decade by any means. He left, I believe 2014 is when he left.
Yeah, but that's why I put him on honorable mention.
But from 2011 to 2014, he had such a big impact. I felt the need to put him on it, even in such a short amount of time. I still think he earned it, and till this day, a lot of people are begging for him to wrestle in some capacity. So I just think that speaks volumes to his impact. Number 3, and I was really close to thinking this dude was number 1. I really fought for this. Daniel Bryan. I think if anybody tells me Daniel Bryan's the best wrestler of the decade, I'm not going to argue with them, man. This dude is special. It's kind of hard to put in the words, like, even now with what he's doing with Bray Wyatt, this dude, he's small, but he's technically gifted. He could have a match with anybody. Look what he's done in this decade. We thought he had to retire for a year or two. He overcame that and came back, main event of WrestleMania, and beat Triple H, Randy Orton, and Batista in the same night. The Yes Movement took over for years. Daniel Bryan just has to be on the list. And number 2 is John Cena. I think John Cena, it speaks for himself, man. Even though he's semi-retired at this point, he's still, like you said, held down the fort. He was still the franchise player most
For
of
the
this
first
decade.
half, yeah.
There's just no denying it. And I think this decade, even though his prime was the previous decade, I think in this decade, Cena really stepped into his bag and proved, yo, I could hang with these guys that in the ring that their move set and athleticism's off the charts. I think this era he had just as much 5-star matches, and I think he did that to prove that he could wrestle, because a lot of people used to say he couldn't wrestle. So I think Cena really stepped it up in this era. But number one, surprisingly, this might have been spoiled for those who read my last article for dailyddt.com/fansided.com. Brock Lesnar is the wrestler of the decade. Brock isn't my first cup of tea. He isn't my favorite. But you know what? He ended the streak. Had us all crapping our pants in shock and awe. He's went through John Cena with a record 15 plus suplexes. He beat John Cena while John Cena was still in his prime for the championship in basically a squash match. He beat Triple H. He beat AJ Styles. He's Universal or WWE champion on top most of the time. And when he does lose, he helps put over and makes the next guy feel like a big deal. So I just think he doesn't get enough credit for the worker he is. Brock Lesnar is a really great worker, and I think he's the best wrestler of this decade, man.
Nah, I can't do that. I can't do
Why?
that. It would disrespect.
People can't do that.
I love Lesnar. I love him, but when you talk about those three Shield members, they were here for most of the start of the decade, and then they have been important. They have been important the whole damn decade, and they have been not taking any type of breaks. They went all straight through. They got over organically, and Brock Lesnar, he's too in and out, and he's had a lot of flops. He had a lot of flop matches.
I mean, you're right. I can't dispute that. He's a part-timer. We know this. But are you insinuating that being a part-timer disqualifies you with the quality of the performance you put on when you are there? Because when Brock is present, he's the main attraction. When Brock is there, he delivers. When Brock is there, he's never ignored.
I don't have a problem with what you're saying, but when you come, because you're a part-timer, when you come, you have to have an A+ at least every single time. We can't say that for Brock Lesnar.
You can say that for Brock Lesnar.
Not an A+ match. An A+ match?
Most of the time.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Honestly.
Goldberg was terrible.
Yeah, you gotta bring up this guy. The guy that balked.
Dean Ambrose was terrible.
Dean Ambrose was terrible. I give you that. I was on record with that.
A couple of those Cenas wasn't that good.
Nah, I think him and Cena always hit it out the park, especially the Extreme Rules match. They got chemistry. They made it.
Come on, man.
I'm gonna be honest with you. I wasn't a fan of the Triple H stuff back.
That's another one.
I like the fact that he attacked Shawn Michaels in the parking lot, but I wasn't crazy about their matches. I didn't think it clicked like that. But
even this Cain Velasquez thing was average.
What was that?
The Cain Velasquez match?
Cain Velasquez one was
average.
It wasn't meant to be a classic. So I don't really.
That's what I'm saying. There's a lot of hits on his resume. And there's another name
You're telling me there's not a lot of hit on Dean Ambrose's resume?
Not from the first half. Not from the first half. He started being bad when he was going out, when he was getting kicked out. Not in the other.
He started being bad in like 2017.
That's when he was already not interested.
Oh.
No, seriously.
I think that Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns, I could take them in the 5. I don't know if I could take Dean Ambrose in the 5 or John Moxley.
But here's my thing. You put Daniel Bryan in there, and Daniel Bryan, when he hit his prime, that's when all the injuries and stuff was happening. We didn't really get a whole lot of Daniel Bryan moments like we got Dean.
once again, I'm going quality over quantity. Yeah, that Daniel Bryan had to take a break from injuries here and there.
Long break.
Yeah, but everything else he did, while he was there, I think it makes up for it. He might not have the same amount of moments and highlights and accomplishments, but I think the things he did accomplish clearly held more weight in the grand scheme of things. He has to be in there for me. He might be number one. If you wanted to, if we're talking full-time performance, he might be number one.
That's disrespectful.
Strip Brock Lesnar, if we're excluding part-timers, Daniel Bryan might be number one.
Roman had a better decade.
Oh, come on.
Had a better decade. Cena had a better decade.
Cena's kind of...
Come on.
That's arguable.
He was too in and out.
It's arguable.
Him and Punk.
Punk, I think Punk was just an anomaly.
They were too in and out.
Punk, all he needed was like 3-4 years. Bryan had...
fair.
I think it's fair. I think
that's not fair.
Gotta look at impact.
It should be a 5-year minimum, at least. Of straight work.
If we're doing that, then we're gonna have to hand it to John Cena, essentially.
Because he put in the most consistent work for the longest time.
To him,
you gotta give it
outside his prime a little bit.
Nah, the first. What do you mean? He became 16 champion in this decade.
Yes,
superstar of the year, Royal
Rumble.
The
Rock back and beat him.
He beat The Rock.
Yeah.
It don't get no better than that.
Yeah. You make a good point there, but I think you're selling Brock short. I think he's a great worker. He gets his matches always have a different feel to them. He's not like everybody else. They're special. They're always special. They're not always 5-star in-ring classics, but they're always special for the most part.
I agree. I'm okay with you putting Brock one or two. I'm okay with Brock Lesnar, but I think Daniel Bryan, CM Punk, those guys got to go.
Jeez.
I'm serious, man.
That's disrespectful. Serious, man. That's more disrespectful to Daniel Bryan. That's a little disrespectful.
I don't think so. They're Hall of Famers. They're Hall of Famers, seriously. But at the end of the day, when we're talking about a 10-year stretch, how many years was really great from them?
Probably, in Daniel Bryan's case, because CM Punk didn't have a lot. I'll probably say 3, maybe 4. Maybe.
I don't think that's enough.
I'd have to think about it more closely.
I don't think that's enough, man.
That's a fair point. But speaking of Daniel Bryan, before we end, I don't like how he cut his hair. I get the storyline.
I like
it. You like that?
I like
he looks like NXT back when NXT was the developmental show back when he first came. He looked like that Daniel Bryan again.
I think and that's why I like it. I think he's starting from scratch. Remember the Daniel Bryan that was Money in the Bank? That was a great time, an underrated time for Daniel Bryan's career. So I think he's gonna bring that side back a little bit more. That annoying guy.
Yeah. He's definitely still putting in work. But yo, get involved in the conversation. Keep up with your boys. Let us know who you think the wrestler of the decade is. Let us know if you agree, disagree, like it, love it, hate it, or anything in between. And don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube at Wrestling with Things.
And I got something to say.